Hey, White Sox fans, it's Crystal O'Keefe with episode 25 of Visiting Dugout, brought to you by the Southside Sox, a part of Fans First Sports Network. Today on the show, I have my friend Ed Hand. He comes from sites like Pesky Report and Sox Prospects, and he is the original caretaker of the Trust-O-Meter, and he is here to talk all things Red Sox. So, hello, Ed. Would
Hi,
you like to add
Crystal.
anything to that?
It's good to be here. Yeah, my name's Ed Hand. I am the social media manager for SoxProspects.com, which is a scouting site for the Red Sox. I'm also co-host on the Pesky Report, and I was a like a free agent analyst on Rob Bradford's Baseball Isn't Boring last winter. Yeah, it's really good to be here. We've had Crystal on a couple of times, so it's kind of nice to be able to return the favor there.
Yeah, for sure. I love working with you guys. You're always fun. So, we've got this series coming up that Bailey, Bailey and I once dubbed the laundry series. So, we've got the American League East, that is like a juggernaut of divisions right now. Every team is above 500. Obviously, the Rays came out of the gate just swinging. The Orioles have been a really pleasant surprise for probably everyone not in your division. You
Yeah,
guys are,
that's accurate.
yeah, you guys are sitting at 520, but are still in last place because of how crazy this division is. So, what is going on in Boston, and how do you climb that leaderboard?
That's tough to say. It is a very difficult division. The Red Sox have been they've been inconsistent. When they're good, they're really good, and they'll go on like an 8 game winning streak, or more recently a 6 game winning streak. And when they're bad, they look like they're missing plays that even a like softball team would make. So it's been a lot of inconsistency, which can be frustrating. I think what you want from your baseball team is generally, like, if we're talking about a graph, you want it to be like a straight train. You don't want it to be lots of peaks and valleys. And there have been so far lots of peaks and valleys, high highs, low lows. Recently, they went on a 6 game winning streak, and then they lost two, one of which was pretty winnable, and one of which, Joe Ryan decided that he was going to be completely unhittable, which, good for Joe Ryan. I'm very happy for the Twins getting him for 2 months of Nelson Cruz, but that was not the most fun if you're a Red Sox fan yesterday.
Yeah, I was watching a little bit of that game because I wrote about it for Pitcher List this morning, and I was like, oof, I don't even want to bring that up tomorrow.
Oh no, I mean it's good. I have no beef with the Twins. Joe Ryan's a good pitcher, but
Yes.
just frustrating to watch as a Red Sox fan.
That's fair. So I wanted to talk about the Trust-O-Meter just in case some people are confused. I think it's a funny and very fun concept, but do you mind,
Oh yeah.
explaining?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I the Trustometer started a couple of years ago. I forget the exact date, but the Red Sox bullpen in 2021 was pretty bad. Like Hansel Robles they traded for at the deadline, and he ended up being their savior. So that kind of gives you an idea of the state that it was in. And I kind of just wanted to gauge, okay, there are stats on these players, but how much do I actually trust them when they come in? And I sort of started ranking them that way. And usually, I think more often than not, the stats do back them up. But you know how the bullpen can be, where you're a reliever, you have one really bad outing, and it sets off your ERA for the rest of the season. So it's sort of a good way to gauge that, and just not be totally reactionary when a guy has a bad game. So like Kenley Jansen earlier this year, he got his 400th save and then immediately blew his next two saves, and people were get Kenley out of here, get him out of here, and it was like, well, he had two bad outings, like maybe let's put him down to number 3 on the list for now. But when you're updating it every day, you kind of notice the trends, and you can, you're not going to kick somebody from number 1 to number 7 in one day. It's a gradual process. But that's how the Trustometer originated. The art on it, which is I made the initial one was just done in 5 minutes on MS Paint, and then this year I got really stoned and did it in about a half hour, and It's kind. I consider it the Eric Andre style baseball graphics. That is how I would call the Trustometer artwork. But yeah, I do that every day for every game, unless it's just nothing happens, in which case it will just be the same for a little bit longer. But if you go to my Twitter at edhand89, it's pinned to the top of the page, so you can see it there if you're curious.
It's very beautiful. The artwork is just perfect.
I have a hat with that on it. That's like the one thing that I've bought from our merch site was the hat of my MS Paint design.
I looked at your store the other day and I didn't even realize that was in there. I got to go back and look now.
Yeah, we've got that, and we've got the Hogdale hat, or the Hogdale shirt. I don't know which one it is, but I'm a little annoyed about that because it's like the guy who makes it, Brandon Brewer, who is terrific, absolutely phenomenal guy to work with. But for Hogdale, my co-host, he made like an animated face of him, and I wanted the real Hogdale's face on a shirt, so I won't buy it.
That's fair. That's fair. So, Brandon Walter, what can you tell me about him? I think he just made his debut last night, wasn't it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Made his debut last night. Kind of a late bloomer. He made his debut as a 26-year-old. Everything's kind of thrown off from the COVID season, so the age doesn't really matter as much there. But he was a late round draft pick back when I think it was 26th round, back when the draft was still 40 rounds, and kind of developed at a University of Delaware. I don't think that there were terribly high expectations for him, but he just especially the last 2 years prior to 2022, so 21, and then the first half of 22, he was absolutely a dominant force at high A and double A. Throws slider, more of a control guy than like somebody that's going to overpower you. But the slider is considered one of the more difficult pitches to hit in the system. Added a cutter to that arsenal recently as a changeup. Struggled this year in AAA. He had a neck injury to end last season, so he got called up to AAA and didn't really make it for very long before he got hurt. And this season's been more of a struggle, but of late he was pitching a little bit better. He didn't exactly get the promotion to the big leagues because he was just so dominant in AAA. It was more of a lack of depth, and he was on the 40 man. But he clearly can pitch. He went 6 2/3 out of the bullpen. They used Justin Garza as an opener and then brought him in, and he kind of salvaged the bullpen in that Joe Ryan gem. But he's interesting. He's one of these guys that I'm kind of curious to see what his role is going to be moving forward. If they use him as a depth guy, if he's like a number 5 starter. He had the potential, I think, prior to this season that, like, if everything went right, he might be a middle of the rotation starter. Hasn't really gone that way so far, but he's still relatively young at 26 and getting his first taste of the majors. But it was definitely encouraging. He didn't strike out a ton of guys, but he induced a lot of weak contact, and that he got outs, and that's what they really needed for him. Plus, left-handed with a plus slider. Yeah. That's going to play even if it's as a reliever rather than a starter.
Well, every team needs a good innings eater that will at least get the outs and not completely blow it. So, and we just had a 29-year-old make his MLB debut the other night.
That's always exciting when that happens.
Yeah, it's never too late. But the whole reason I asked about him, obviously, the injury bug has really hit you guys. Reese McGuire is going to be out. Tanner Houck.
Yeah, your old friend Reese.
Yeah, best friends. Tanner's having surgery. Shortstop situation seems dire. A few relievers are out. We'll talk about another one next. I'm sure you know what that is. But is your farm team able to handle this, or is this like a Red Sox need to be immediate buyers?
I would say more towards the latter, that they do need the AAA depth isn't great at the moment. They just brought up David Hamilton, who's exceptionally fast. He stole 70 bases at Double-A last year, had 26 steals and 11 homers at Triple-A this year, so he's doing pretty well there. But he's not. His defense is more suited for second base than shortstop. The shortstop situation's been. It's just been a revolving door. It was supposed to be Trevor Story. he had like the pseudo Tommy John with like the elbow brace, so they think he'll be able to come back come August, so it's sort of like just hold out until then. But since then, it's been Kike Hernandez, who plays great defense at every position except for shortstop. He's leading the league in errors. Hilariously, they've mostly been on throws. Like he can make all the plays there, he just can't throw it straight. It's like he has the yips at shortstop for some reason. So he moved off for Yu Chang, who didn't really hit that well, but his glove was like I can't tell you how much I enjoyed watching Yu Chang play defense.
Mm-hmm.
Then of course he broke a hamite bone. Was supposed to be back by now. The rehab hasn't gone that well, so that's just got it put back on the 60-day IL. So from Yu Chang, when they went back to Kike Hernandez, who just continued making errors. Then they brought in Pablo Reyes off of the AAA team for the A's. Which is kind of like, wow, that's really desperate. But you look at what he's done this year, and he's hitting over 300. It's like not a huge sample size, but he's played very good defense. But then he had some kind of an abdominal issue a couple days ago. Got into a game, and then they took him out. So it looks like it's like a mix of Kike and David Hamilton, and a little bit of Christian Arroyo, I guess, can play there if you need him to. Reyes hasn't been put on the IL yet, so maybe he'll be able to come back. But they're really just treading water until they can have Story come back in August. So I wouldn't say that's one of the immediate buyer positions. With catcher, though, I mean, they don't really have any depth behind Connor Wong and Reese McGuire, who, as we mentioned, did something to his oblique. So, and you know how oblique injuries can be. He could be out for a couple weeks. He could be out for the rest of the season. It's not that Reese McGuire was what one would consider to be a world beater, but he's a solid number 2 catcher. Like, you can put him in the back of your lineup, have him catch a couple of days a week and not feel completely terrible about it.
Yeah.
They don't really have anybody after him there. They had Jorge Alfaro to start the season, who was a good hitter, and I can say this going to a lot. I cover the White Sox I do data streaming for them, so I'm at a lot of their games, and his defense made the pitching at AAA worse. So he was hitting like 340 there, opted out of his contract. He's with the Rockies now. But the guy that they brought up, Caleb Hamilton, is what you would consider to be an emergency up and down catcher. So he's somebody that you have there for this exact situation. You don't want to have to depend on him. So Connor Wong, who is having a very good year, I don't think people expected his defense particularly to be as strong as it's been. But it's catcher. You can't play him every day. So they need to get something out of Hamilton, or they're going to have to trade for somebody or figure something out if McGuire's going to be missing a lot of time. Then with pitching, Brandon Walter got brought up for that reason. I think he had an ERA above 6 in AAA. So, that's what you're bringing up. And he did a good job in that first outing. I think he's a better pitcher than those numbers indicate. I actually think he's one of, just going back to him, he's one of I've gotten the chance to talk to him a few times, and he's just one of these guys that knows how to pitch and is completely fearless. You don't go from being a 26th round pick to being on the 40 roster by accident. There's so many guys you have to outpitch to do that, and you're so much lower on the totem pole, or whatever the expression would be for that now.
Right.
He needed to have the confidence in himself and the ability to do that. So I think he can pitch at the big league level, but they're still short a couple of starters there after the Chris Sale injury also, which is that the one you were going to mention next? Yeah. Another White Sox. There's been a bunch of these White Sox Red Sox trades.
I know. We have a lot of old common friends.
Yeah, it's refreshing in some ways, and a little bit of a Debbie Downer in some other ways. But the rotation isn't, I think, as dire as like the shortstop situation has been, or the catching depth is, because they do have Brayan Mayo's been very good. Garrett Whitlock, since coming off the IL, has been really good. James Paxton has been I think to the surprise of just about everybody, because they gave him $10 million last year. He didn't pitch a single game. And he opted back in for $4 million, and people thought, oh, here we go again. He's taking free money from the Red Sox, and he's pitched like an ace. He's been an absolute workhorse for them. So those are 3 solid starters there. And then you also have Cutter Crawford, who pitched 5 shutout innings in his last start, and probably better as a relief pitcher, but you can't really be choosy right now. It's like people wanted at the beginning of the season. It was, I want Houck in the rotate. I don't want him in the rotation. I want him in the bullpen. And then you had other people that wanted Whitlock in the bullpen. But they've got a decent amount of homegrown starters right now. It's like 3 out of 4. Like if you count Walter as the 5th guy, 4 out of 5 of their starters are homegrown. I don't remember the last time there was a Red Sox team like that. But if another guy gets hurt, then you might be thinking about moving Nick Pivetta back into the rotation, which based on how he pitched before wasn't ideal. Or Corey Kluber, who was their big starting pitching free agent, has been just a shell of the man that won 2 Cy Young awards. It's not, they're almost at their limit with depth, so they really can't take another hit there. But for the time being, they can hold out for right now.
Well, that's good. So with Chris Sale, once again, injured list with a stress reaction in his left scapula. Doesn't sound good, but that, is his pitching arm. So do you think he's actually going to return, or do you think he's done? Because I talk about this too with Jacob deGrom. They're both around my age. I could not think, at 36 that someone like that should be pitching, and they are constantly, on and off this injured list with issues with their pitching arm. So is he going to return and close out the year, or do you think his career is just done? Like this is the end-all injury?
It's a good question. They're very different injuries with deGrom too, because that was Tommy John, and that's his second Tommy John. This is like a stress fracture in I think it's his shoulder blade.
Yeah.
So it's not good. Obviously, he's on the 60-day IL, but he doesn't need surgery for it, at least as of now. I think the day he can come back would be in August. I would expect if he does come back that it's closer to September, just because you need to ramp that up, and it sucks because he was really starting to get back into form. He had a very good, I think it was his month of May after a really terrible April.
Yeah.
So that's, and nobody's going to compete harder than him. Nobody's going to try to come back harder than he is. I'm not going to sit on the wall with this one, though. I do think he's going to come back. I just don't know if he's going to be able to stay healthy again. You can't really depend on him at this stage of his career for much. Anything you get is a bonus. They're very, very lucky that they got what they got out of Paxton to kind of fill in for that.
Mm-hmm.
It's not an ideal situation. We look back at these trades, and I don't think that the Red Sox would change anything with the actual trade for Sale. I think that if they could redo that extension, they probably wouldn't do it again, to the point that I actually think that might be what cost Dave Dombrowski his job here.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I know both sides were actually very happy with that trade, which is not super common, but I love Michael Kopech and will defend him even on my deathbed, even if he's bad. So, but yeah, it's such a bummer with Chris Sale, because he is so talented, and he's just, maybe his personality isn't great, but I try to do some mental gymnastics around that, because he is such a great pitcher. But I just hope he has some sort of resemblance of what he once was, because like you said, May, he was looking like vintage Chris Sale again.
Yeah, no, the resemblance was definitely there. And if you can get even a little bit of that back, like 80% vintage Chris Sale is still pretty good. 70% is pretty good. They just, they just need the innings from him. Even if he comes back as a reliever or something, that could help them out if they're still in the playoff run, knock on wood, in the playoff race. But yeah, no, it's not fun when your ace breaks down like that, and most teams aren't like the Rangers, where like your big playoff acquisition is the only one that doesn't really go very well for you.
Right.
I mean, between that and Kluber, to be honest, most of the off-season moves the Red Sox made have actually worked out for them.
Mm-hmm.
But they could definitely stand to get another starter because, like I was saying, right now they can kind of hold out, but the depth is starting to get a little low.
Right. So, away from Chris Sale, even though I could talk about him for hours on end, where do you see the Red Sox sitting by September? Do you think the situation will actually improve?
Oh, that's a really good question. I think it's going to be more of the same. The big turning factor is Trevor Story, how he looks when he comes back. Because if he comes back and he's like, Colorado Rockies prime Trevor Story, then you have a Gold Glove caliber shortstop and like a 30 home run right-handed bat, which is something that they've needed.
Yeah.
So that could be the real tide turner. But I think what did I predict? I think I predicted 86 wins at the beginning of the season for them. And the reason for that was because they're kind of a 500 team. They have strengths, they have weaknesses. The weaknesses are pretty glaring. The strengths are pretty nice, and they've gotten some good performances from players. Alex Verdugo's really taken a step forward. Not you might not notice it in the off. I mean, he's leading the league in doubles, only 5 homers, but his defense has improved substantially. He's currently around a 3 WAR player at this point in the season. So he's been good. Masataka Yoshida, a little bit streaky, but he's going to be competing for the batting title come September, and that'll be fun to watch. He can flat out hit, and he's only if he stays healthy, it's only going to get better the more accustomed to American pitching he is. Justin Turner's been, especially in this month, he's been on an absolute tear.
I forgot he was there.
Yeah, he's not just there. He's hitting like 286 with I think
Yeah.
11 home runs or something right now. He absolutely demolished the Yankees. And he had like a game where he had 2 home runs. One of them was a grand slam double, I think. He's been impressive and just like you don't realize it because you only see him when they play the Dodgers, which doesn't happen a lot. But he just puts up quality at bat after quality at bat. He takes his walks. He goes to the opposite field. He's a good hitter. But 38 years old, how much can you depend on that in the stretch run?
Yeah.
Jaron Duran's taken a nice step forward. They've got again. They've got 3 starters that have been pretty consistent. The bullpen's been excellent. Really legitimate closer in Kenley Jansen, who will sometimes frustrate you, but mostly is good to shut down the game. Chris Martin's been one of the best setup men in the league for my money. Josh Winkowski has converted seamlessly to the bullpen. He can give you 1 inning, he can give you 3 innings. I think he's leading the league in innings pitched out of the bullpen. That might have changed now, but because he got sick or something and they weren't using him as much, but he has, I think, close to 40 innings, something like that. Brennan Bernardino, they've had a couple of good little like waiver finds. Bernardino's a lefty reliever that's just, he's just gotten outs for them. So they've got some good areas, but there are some aforementioned weaknesses as well. Second base has not been ideal. Christian Arroyo just can't stay healthy. He has his nice little tears that he goes on sometimes, but like I think he went 5 for 5 the other day or something like that. But he just can't stay healthy, and he has stretches where he also looks like he can't hit. Shortstop has obviously been glaring hole. Rafael Devers just hasn't. It's funny because you look at like he's one of the top guys in the league in home runs and RBIs, but he just hasn't been Rafael Devers. He hasn't put together that stretch where he's just like the best hitter in the league, and that's something that I think he knows, and it's hurt them a bit. They've been fortunate that Turner's been able to step in and Yoshida's been able to get hot, but they need more from Devers. Tristan Cassis has been kind of a polarizing figure here. He's the rookie first baseman for them, and he had a very rough month of April where I think he hit 137 and was just trying to walk too much, but he's gotten hot in the month of June and looks to have, as rookies do sometimes, it's been a slow start, but he seems to be adjusting to the league. I still think 86 wins. I don't think anything's really changed for me there. I think they'll be like 5 games over 500 at the end of the year, and we'll see if that gets them a playoff spot or not.
That's fair. So the one question I love to ask people, it's kind of a double question, but who is your MVP candidate right now on the team? But on the other end, who would you be willing to put on the trading block?
Who would I put on the trading block? Like, would people actually want to trade for them, or is it just somebody that I'm hoping the team gets rid of?
You're just hoping they get rid of.
um. Okay, yeah. I mean, the MVP right now for the team, I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer. It's Alex Verdugo. The defense has just been so much better this year in right field. There were questions if he was going to be capable of playing it, and he's been. I mean, right field at Fenway is hard to play, and he's handled it pretty seamlessly. He's got a great arm. Occasionally, he makes kind of a silly play, but like who doesn't? And the bat's been. He's finally. I was saying this about him. If he ever figures out how to focus for an entire season and just go to the opposite field, he's going to win a batting title and hit 50 doubles. And he's leading the league in doubles right now, so I'm halfway there on that one. He's been the pretty clear MVP. I mean, and as far as guys that I'd like them to trade, I mean, I don't really actively dislike players. It's kind of like, oh, this guy's struggling, but maybe he can figure this out. I don't know. Like, maybe it's just from like being around the guy at AAA, but like there's a lot of work that goes into it, and being able to make it to the big leagues and to stay in the big leagues. It's really, baseball's hard. So
Yeah.
I don't like wish, like, like when somebody's struggling, it's like, oh, send them to the moon. It's like, no, maybe like let them work on it and try to fix it. This isn't easy. But I mean, Corey Kluber's on the IL right now, but you kind of gotta wish they were getting anything from him other than your mop up guy.
Mhm.
Bobby Dahlbeck, who's in AAA and has been absolutely mashing there, but he's kind of like a man without a role. I think it would be better for him and better for the Red Sox to be able to move him. Maybe that's the kind of guy you can trade for a number 2 catcher if a team needs a first baseman or a third baseman or a right-handed DH or something. But it's sort of wasting his talents right now in AAA. And I say this watching him. He hit so at the AAA stadium in Worcester, there's like an Amtrak train that'll go by the stadium sometimes. And Dahlbeck actually hit one off of the train earlier this week. It's only the second time I've ever seen that happen, which is just super cool. Like, can you imagine being on a train going by like a stadium and suddenly something just nails the window?
That's wild. I love that. He's actually in one of our audience questions. So I've pulled questions from people on Twitter. They are all actually just really funny, almost jokey questions.
Good, let's do it.
We've got, what is the weirdest thing that has ever happened inside the red monster?
The green monster?
Oh, yeah. Why? Yes.
It's red with its victim's blood.
Yes. I'm thinking I put Red Sox, Red Monster. I have a shirt that even says Green Monster, but
No, I feel you. The weirdest thing that's probably Manny Ramirez running inside of it to take a pee in between innings. I think that happened once. I'd imagine like the operator there has brought like a lady friend inside at some point or a man friend inside at some point, and who knows what happened after that.
That's fair.
That would be my answer.
We have, what is Bobby Dahlbeck's real age?
I think he's 27. He looks like he has like a child's face and like a He-Man body. Like he's even bigger looking like up close too. Like he's like if you stacked a couple of barrels on top of each other and then taped some barrels like on top of those. Like that is a large man, and he moves really well for someone his size though. Like he's pretty fast.
Yeah. Yeah, he looks like a baby, though. I think that was the origin of that question.
Yeah, so does Rafael Devers. Like, they have a thing for babyface third baseman.
Yes. We have how pesky is Pesky's pull?
Depends on if things are going well for you or not. Sometimes it's great when, like, your guy hits one off of it, but then if somebody else does, it's very pesky. It's very annoying.
I've sat right behind it before. That was fun.
That's my usual seats will be in section 33 or section 34 because like you have to crank your neck a little bit, but it's like you're close to the action. There's a chance of getting a foul ball, and it's very easy to move up if like people start to leave. You can kind of access better seats very quickly.
We've got, will Tristan Cassis ever perform in the majors like he did in the Olympics, asking for a dynasty team?
I would say yes. I would say please be patient on a 23-year-old rookie who's not even through his third month of the majors. I think I actually just before I started made a tweet about this. in the month of June, he's 80 plate appearances. He has a 268, 375, 456 slash line, 5 doubles, 2 home runs, 9 RBI, and his strikeout rate is to walk rate. He's 12 walks to 17 strikeouts. So he's improved quite a bit this month. And that kind of is consistent with the trend. He improved a bit in May. He was terrible in April. So the trend is upwards with him. Maybe he takes a hit in July. Who knows? Player development isn't always linear, but he has an elite skill set in his like raw power and in his ability to take pitches. He can get velocity, which Joan Duran, who I'm sure you've seen plenty of with the Twins, their closer there, he hit a game-tying double off of him in a one-run game earlier this week. So if you can get a hit off of that guy, and not just a hit, but like an extra base hit in like a meaningful one-run game, that's not easy to do. So
No.
I don't know if Tristan Casas is going to be the next Freddie Freeman, but he's a big league player, and I think that you have to have patience with rookies.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, you do. And then we have one more before we take a quick break and then break down the series. This one's terrible. Why does their team name start with the exact same letter they never pronounce in Boston?
Wow, I've never really thought of that before. That's a great question. I would say because you can call them the Red Sox then, and that's my name, and that would change the logo to me running around in Red Sox. I don't know. Like that's an excellent question. I have no idea.
I hear it the most, especially when Bailey is getting like very passionate about a subject. Like I hear that very thick Boston accent, and she's been out in California for a while now, but that comes through when she's heated.
She has a very thick accent, which is wild because she's from Winchester, which is where my fiance is actually from. Her and my fiance's little brother were in the same high school class,
Cute.
Which is a very small. It's a real small world sort of thing. But nobody at Allie's family has that accent, so I don't know where Bailey gets it from. But yeah, no, she definitely has that like the old Goodwill Hunting twang.
Yeah. She's the Matt Damon to my Ben Affleck. All right.
I can see that. I would agree that you are I could see you pulling Jennifer Lopez.
Yeah, I could probably pull all of the people that Ben Affleck has been with. Personally, I was looking for him last time I was in Boston, and one of my friends was like, "Well, you were in the wrong neighborhood."
He works at Dunks now, doesn't he?
I was at a Dunkin', and she was like, "But no, you were in the wrong neighborhood for the Dunkin'. You would have caught him at this one." And I was like, "Well, why didn't you tell me that beforehand?"
There are a lot of. I mean, to be fair, like there are like 5 Dunks per town at minimum. It's that's the real pandemic. Is Dunkin' Donuts in Massachusetts?
All right, we're going to take a quick break to pay bills, and we'll be back to break down the series. And welcome back. Once again, I've got Ed here. We are going to talk about this laundry series. First, we have interesting pitching matchups. Today is Lucas Giolito. He's kind of our current ace. He's going against Brian Bello. Tomorrow is Lance Lynn against James Paxton. That might be a bloodbath for the White Sox because Lance Lynn has not been great. His last game, he got 16 strikeouts, but they still lost. But he has been just really bad. Sunday, you've got Cutter Crawford. I don't know who the White Sox are even putting up yet because it's a mess. Clevenger's, thankfully on the injured list. But we did have Tukey come in and make his White Sox debut and pitched 4 scoreless innings. So I'm hoping he's just like kicking Clevenger out of that spot.
Tukey Tucson, there's a name I haven't heard in a while. One of the many Braves pitching prospects who, they send their guys up very young, and I think that gives them a longer shelf life because they get that major league experience quickly. He's always had really good stuff, though. The control was what the issue was with him. So it's kind of, I hope that he doesn't start against the Red Sox that game because I would like to see the Red Sox sweep the White Sox. But I'm always rooting for Tukey though. He seems like a good guy.
Yeah, I like him. So that's where we're at. So what are your keys to kind of take this series?
For the Red Sox, I mean, Bayo versus Giolito is going to be interesting because Bayo's been functionally. It's him and Paxton have been the best two starters for the Red Sox this year, but I think Bayo's been more consistent, especially after the first month. Mm-hmm. He's just absolutely dominated the Yankees on national television 2 weeks in a row, which was pretty cool. He had both Sunday night starts and they won both of them. I think he was even better. They won the first one in extra innings, but I think he was even better in that first one. I think he gave up 1 run in the second one, and he gave up 2 in the first, but it was on like kind of a BS base hit up the middle where it hit second base. On Pesky Report, we have we do our like MVPs for the series, but we also have the Hogdale calls it the poop sock. That goes to the worst player on the team for that, and we gave it to the Yankee Stadium second base for that series because of that hit. But Bayo and Giolito, I mean, how's Giolito been this year? Has he been like actually pitching like an ace, or is it just like he's the best that you've got?
So he had a rough April, but he somehow completely rebounded and has been great. I know there's only been like one kind of rough game since April, and even that I wouldn't say was a bad game. It was just we played a good team. So he's looking a lot more like the ace, kind of like the 2020 Giolito that we had.
Yeah, I don't know if you know this, but a lot of like Red Sox Twitter users with lots of numbers at the end of their name really want the Red Sox to trade like their worst prospects for Giolito and Dylan Cease. I don't know if you knew this or not. But those guys are, if they're sellers, or even if they're not sellers, I think they want them to do that.
Yeah, I hear a lot of people that would like to take Lucas. I know my Orioles friends would really appreciate his talent at Camden. So that's one I don't want to let go of. But again, we are down very bad to the point where it almost feels like a tanking season. So maybe I'll just take what I can get at this point.
I mean, listen, I'm not watching them every day like you are. I see the record, like their wins and losses, and I see some of the performances. Like Lance Lynn, I saw like, wow, he struck out 16 guys, and they still lost. How did that happen? But there is still some good players on that team, you know? Like they look, at least on paper, they look like they're 1 or 2 guys away from it. You know, you've got Anderson at shortstop and that outfield, or Eloy and Luis Robert. Are they hurt or again?
No, Eloy's actually, he's having a pretty good month. Like June has been great for him. He was injured. He came back and now he's like actually seeing the ball. He's hitting the ball. Luis Robert is really streaky. There are games where he is just on fire. And then there are games where I'm just like, who is this? Why is this the bad twin? So
does he have a mustache when that's happening or something?
I'm just like, who is this person? And then like even Moncada has been really streaky. They've actually been, well, he's on the injured list now, but there are days where I'm just like, okay, let's put Jake Berger in there instead.
Well, there's a fun name. My favorite guy on the White Sox for a while has been Tim Anderson.
Mm-hmm.
Is he? But I saw when I was looking at his numbers, like his power has just kind of disappeared this year. Is he playing hurt again, or like is he no longer the Tim Anderson?
So beginning kind of late last year, it seemed like he really started this kind of downward spiral, and he's carried that over. I think it is some injury. Like I think it's just something that has extended over time, and he's now just really sluggish because he's not hitting for power. He's striking out more than anything, and like he makes so many errors now. There's so many times where I'm just like, that was catchable. That was an easy out, and you'd completely fumbled that. Who are you? So it's been really disappointing to see that because he is such a great player, and he does so much for Chicago, but then again he does the same for like people in Georgia where he's from. But It's been tough to watch. Like I said, he hasn't even hit a home run yet this year. He's like the only person on the team, I think, that has not hit one this year.
Oh yeah, you have another ex-Red Sox that just did that. Benintendi.
Yes, he finally
Old Betty boyfriend.
But yeah, so it's been interesting.
Yeah.
Let's see.
That's going to be. I mean, that's going to, I think, be a really fun matchup though. Bayo and Giolito. I'm glad I'm able to watch that one. I feel like Giolito's kind of prone to getting blown up. Like he's either really good or he's really bad, and there isn't a lot of in between. And Red Sox got shut out yesterday, so they're either about to like the offense is going to disappear for another few weeks, or they're gonna light someone up today. And I'm hoping it's the latter.
Of course you do.
Yeah. But you don't feel good about Lynn versus Paxton. You don't think that the 16 strikeouts are an indicator that he might be because he remember when he got hurt, he hurt his knee last year, Lynn, and then he like really sucked, and then he had a really good second half. Like, do you think that it might be a situation like that where he just needs to? He's just like a second half pitcher or something.
That is what I'm hoping for. I mean, again, I love Lance Lynn. Don't get me wrong. I was incredibly disappointed with that trade because we had a very young Dane Dunning who he's been consistent. And then Lynn has just completely tanked this year. So I'm hoping that was not just a one-time thing and he can go back on this path of being an excellent, like lights out pitcher. But I also know that James Paxton has had a decent year and I'm just a little worried about that game because their offense, they are so streaky. So they, like I said, they didn't show up at all for him when he, reached his career high, like he tied his career high strikeout rate. So
I mean, that might be the highest strikeout total we see this season.
Yeah.
16 is a lot of strikeouts.
Yeah. So I am a little worried about that one.
So do you think it's going to be Tukey for Game 3, or do you think it's going to be like who? I mean, Dylan Cease. It's not going to be him. So
no, it won't be Cease or Kopech. They would be the A's series.
Yeah,
it could be. I honestly kind of hope it is because he has been rested. He had yesterday off, and then he'll have 2 games off unless they pull him in for relief. So it could very well be him. It is really just up in the air right now.
Yeah. Might it be a bullpen game?
Yeah, it could be like Ronaldo Lopez starts and then it's a bullpen game because again, we'll be up against the A's the next series.
I'd be personally into that with Ronaldo Lopez starting, just because wasn't he like a closer candidate to start this season when Hendricks went down? Which also that's great that I mean, I know he's on the IL again now, but I'm very happy that he made such a quick recovery with that. That is, the Red Sox had something similar years ago with John Lester, and it's it's the last thing you want to hear happen to anybody, especially somebody that seems to be such a decent human being.
He's so loved by. I mean, like I don't know a person that can honestly say they can't stand Liam because he is just a joy to baseball.
Is Graveman the closer now?
He has been closing quite a bit. Tukey closed, the other night because he came in.
Did he throw like 4 innings out of the pen or something?
Yeah, he did. Kopech came out early in that game. He was at 86 pitches, and Pedro just said he kind of wanted to rest him because he was he's thrown a lot lately. And then I think it might have been Aaron Bummer. It was Aaron Bummer or Jimmy Lambert that came in for an inning, and then Tukey came in and just closed it down. But it's been like Bummer sometimes it's Graveman, Raylo.
They have so many depressing names on the team between Bummer and Graveman. Like, is there like a guy who's like you just need Scott Downs to come back?
Yeah. And Raylo has been really versatile. Like he can start a game, he can come in and eat a couple innings, as a middle reliever, and he can close. But he's not consistent enough for me to feel comfortable with him doing all of those roles.
Yeah, no, that kind of makes sense. Like you need a guy like that on the team, though, that can throw in a bunch of like Hunter Crawford has basically been that for the Red Sox, who's the number 3 starter there. He's in the rotation now. He started the season as the number 4 starter, and then Sale and Bayo started. Sorry, it was Bayo and I think Paxton were hurt to start the season. Oh, and Whitlock too. They were in the rotation. They started kind of slow this year, but since he was really good out of the pen, usually in like 3-inning bursts, and now he's back in the rotation. So it's really good to have arms like that, though, that can just pitch in a multitude of roles. I think it's Nick Pivetta doing that now for the Sox, who I think is much better out of the pen than he was in the rotation. He'd go on these runs occasionally, but he's just so inconsistent. But I mean, it's going to be I could see this series going in a lot of ways. I could see either team sweeping. I could see it being a very close 2 out of 3 for either one. They're similar in a lot of ways. I think that, and I don't mean this in a mean way or anything, I think that the White Sox are a bit more dysfunctional right now. It seems like I'm sure you've talked about this on shows, but those reports of players requesting to be traded, it just seems like, it seems like it kind of started with that whole Marusa thing last year. So I think that can make a difference in these series that might on paper be a little closer. But, I'm also saying this from a Red Sox fan perspective. So maybe with Mike Clevenger getting hurt, that's like exercised all of their demons. I don't know.
I'm trying to, say that's karma. And it's also saving me a little bit of money right now because I always donate when he starts.
I have a Clevenger bobblehead, and it's because I went to a Columbus Clippers game and they were giving them away, and I don't know what to do with it now because I don't want to have it, but I don't want to just like throw it in the trash either. I kind of want to maybe ritualistically sacrifice it or something.
I was gonna say, we could hex it, we could burn it.
Like either of those things work, but yeah, no, he just
FaceTime me when you do it.
I will. You know what? When I decide what I'm going to do with it, I will send you video of whatever that is.
Thank you.
Because it's going to be something. And even the guy just seems like such a scumbag. You can, with whatever allegations, whatever, how there are sometimes players where you're surprised when it turns out that they're scumbags because they hide it well.
Mm-hmm. He never
even put in the effort for that.
You do know what his song was at the beginning of the season to come out to, right?
I actually don't.
It was Gold Digger.
Are you serious?
And then when they said, hey, that's in poor taste, he got defensive with someone interviewing him, and he was like, I'm here to talk about baseball, so unless you're a music producer, I'm not going to answer your question.
They got to get a music producer to do that interview, then.
Yeah, one of the producers for a Nirvana record was like, "Yeah, that's really shitty of him."
There was a controversy with the Red Sox earlier in a few weeks ago, where a minor leaguer, Matt Dermody, came up to the majors, and he had previously posted a bunch of really just homophobic tweets. And now you might think, oh, this happened when he was in high school. Kids are like that are trying to be it. No, he was 30 when he was tweeting this stuff. So, it was like, well, you can bring up this guy, or you can bring up literally anybody else in your system. Why would you bring up this guy? And, the immediate the immediate discourse that came up in Twitter is very predictable, where it's like, oh, it doesn't matter. It's just baseball, freedom of speech. And the thing that I always think of with this, and it's the same thing with Clevenger, is just because you have freedom of speech doesn't mean other people can't think you're an asshole. It doesn't mean freedom of being judged by other people and freedom to just not have consequences for your actions. It just means you can't go to jail for it. And that's what always pisses me off with this stuff. I'm sorry, Mike. You did something stupid there, and there's zero situational awareness, and you're in a job where it's extremely high profile, and there are going to be all kinds of people watching you from all different walks of life, and you could potentially cost your employers money by being an asshole. So maybe you might want to consider that before you go and do it.
Yeah, and he's still been an asshole. He settled basically by promising therapy that rumor has it he's yet to even attend. So, is what it is with him.
Not to mention, like, you can't just go to therapy and like everything's cured. Like, I hate that whole like, oh, men have to go to therapy. Like, it's not that simple. You can go to therapy and not get anything from it. Like, you have to actually want to be there. It has to be a conscious choice to do it. It's an entirely different conversation that is yeah. It's we could do an entire episode on just dysfunctional men in sports.
Yeah, I will probably at some point write a follow-up to my domestic violence article about that in baseball with the dysfunctional players.
I hope that you deactivate the comments for that when you post it, because there are just it's not. I have found in my experience that it is not worth the headache a lot of the time. But if you're gonna do it, just do the best damn job that you can on it, and like, you don't have to listen to people that are going to hate you no matter what.
Yeah, it'll be a mess. All right, so I want to be cognizant of your time, so we'll do a little almost speed round.
Okay, let's do it.
Who is the biggest threat right now on the Red Sox for this series?
Justin Turner's been absolutely red hot right now, so I would say him.
Do you have a fear heading into this series?
My fear is always that Tristan Cassis is going to do badly, because I am always rooting for him, and the people that hate him really hate him here, and I don't want them to win.
Fair. And then in the kind of general MLB portion, your pleasant surprise team and the team that you are really just shocked about, that are either doing very poorly or, however you want to classify that.
Pleasant surprise, Cincinnati Reds. I mean, did anybody have them pegged for first place?
Absolutely not.
I mean, it's a weak division, but still, like, that's been. I have friends in Cincinnati. I got to go to a Reds game in 2019. Really good fans, beautiful stadium. Just really happy for them. It's great when things are going well for Cincinnati. It's great for baseball.
That stadium is like an hour and a half away from me, so I've spent
awesome.
so much time there.
Yeah, it was the same weekend I got the Clevenger bobblehead, because I went to a Columbus Clippers game, and then we drove 2 hours to a Reds game, and I got a Scott Shedler, remember him, bobblehead there. So those are, I think, probably my two most obscure ones that I own.
I haven't heard that name in forever.
I know. But no, the Reds are really good. As far as teams that I thought were going to be better, if I'm being completely honest, I thought the White Sox were going to be better than they've been. I think I would say that. I'm trying to think if there are any other teams. I mean, the Yankees they have a good record, but they've looked like they don't have an offense right now, like without Aaron Judge. Like,
they nearly got no hit last night.
I know, it was great. It was awesome. So when they get Judge back, they'll probably be better, and they have good pitching. But those are kind of the two. I just thought, I guess, that the Yankees would be a little bit. I didn't think that they'd be getting blown out of the division by like the Rays and the Orioles. The Orioles have been another pleasant surprise, but I feel like everybody's been saying them as one of their good teams. And when you look at them on paper, other than the pitching, it's kind of like, okay, no, that makes sense.
Yeah, they were my team I picked last year that would have a good year this year, because you saw the kind of steadiness.
Yeah,
coming through last year.
Yeah, I thought that they might take a step back this year, and then next year be like really, really good, just because of like sophomore slump and guys. To be fair, there have been guys with their sophomore slumps like Gunnar Henderson, but they've just been able to play really solid ball all around. And it's still a long season. We're not even at the halfway mark yet, so a lot can still happen. I remember June last year, the Red Sox went like 20-4 or something like that, and then July came around and they just fell completely flat on their faces. So there's still, just because you're doing well now doesn't mean you're going to be a contender in September. But, still better to be good now than not to be good now.
All right. Well, that's what I've got for you. So here's where you plug your socials, and again, where we can find you, because you are way too funny and I enjoy our friendship. So everyone else should have Ed as a friend.
That's very kind of you. I enjoy our friendship as well, and it's a real pleasure doing another show with you. I think these are some of the episodes that I look the most forward to. So thank you again for having me. You can find me on Twitter at edhand89. Um, I am a co-host on Pesky Report. That's just at Pesky Report. I think the role that I'm the most proud of is social media manager for Sox Prospects, number one source for all things Red Sox minor leagues. That's at Sox Prospects. I've been with them since 2019. Any of the posts that you see there are going to be from me. That's where I get to do the more analytical baseball stuff, or just talking about prospects that no one else is really following to that degree. That's the stuff that I really really love doing. So that's where you can follow me.
All right. Well, perfect. Again, thank you so much for joining. I'm sure we will chat again in the near future, maybe on the Pesky Report. But thank you for having one of our own other Southside Sox writers, Christina. She's a peach. I love her. So, all right. Well, that's it. Best of luck to you, and we'll chat soon.
Yeah. See you later. Bye, Willow.